Alright boys, welcome back to another 2.2 editor tutorial. In today's video, we are gonna be talking about the one and only arrow trigger. I've got a lot of requests on doing a tutorial about this trigger. It is very complicated, especially if you are gonna use start positions and a lot of triggers. So this is how this video is gonna be structured. So firstly, I'm just gonna be talking about how to change direction of the gameplay. It's gonna be very simple, and then I'm gonna talk about how if you wanna like get a little bit more complex using triggers and stuff like that, so it's gonna like get a little bit more hard, and then we're gonna get into the start positions and how to do all of that stuff. So this video is gonna get like harder as you move on, but it should be fine. And as always in my tutorials, I always talk about everything step for step. So this can be used for beginners and also for the people that are already advanced in the editor but just need a little bit of help. Just a quick note here, if you want to make like that edge block, you place this one and then this one and then copy and paste it and do that. Boom. So the arrow trigger, there are two triggers. There's the reverse and there's also the arrow trigger. The reverse, I would recommend using it, for example, if you... let's say we mute the song, and then you will see that you will simply just go reverse. So the reason why this trigger exists is just so that you can go reverse without having to change the channel, without having to do any of that stuff. It's very simple. So this trigger, all it does is just make you go backwards. You can't change any settings in here. And yeah, you can't change the channel. This is something else that we're going to talk about in a bit. And as a result, if you want to go a little bit more complex and not only just change the direction, but also pulse the background, for example, you would have to use an arrow trigger and just place it down and just rotate it. So the way this works is if you want to go on walls, let's say I'm moving like that, and then I want to all of a sudden just go up on this wall. So the way we would have to put the arrow trigger is to place this arrow towards where you are gonna go. So it's gonna be upwards, and this line in here is gonna be the gravity. So if you go to the right, the gravity is gonna be on the right. So this line is basically the ground that you land on, and this trigger gets activated once. If you play it like that, you can see that it's gonna go up from there. So I would recommend placing it exactly at that spot where you switch the gravity, and boom, we have a player going sideways. And you can place spikes in here and stuff like that. And let me just make a little bit of gameplay in here, something like this. And now we know exactly how this thing works, how you gotta rotate it and stuff like that. So I would say let's just get into a little bit more complicated stuff. Let's say right here, if you are going like that, right when you reach this point, I want to pulse the background to red. So let's try this out. We want to place it in here and make sure it's pulsing to red like that. However, if you play, you will see that it pulses already in here, because if you enable the effect lines in here, it's in the settings, you will see this line, and this line shows that once the player hits that line, it's gonna pulse to red. However, how do we want to specify that this is going like that? Like the line should go rather like this. The way we do it is by setting up the channels, and it's gonna be very simple at the beginning. Like I said, you click on the arrow trigger and then change the channel. Just click on this one and then go to a new channel. What this button does is it basically goes to the next free channel. So if a channel has not been used before, you can click on this one and then it's going to show it. So the first unused channel is number 1, and channels are basically, you can see them as tracks, or timelines. So you are moving, by default you are moving at timeline 0, and if I pulse this like that, this is by default every trigger is on timeline 0. So you're gonna pulse to red because you are on timeline 0 and the trigger is also on timeline 0. However, this one changes the timeline to 1. So now we want to make this trigger also be on timeline 1. And we do this in the way we go to edit group, and then in here you can see the channel. You can see this as the timeline, change it to 1, and you can see that now I go like that and it doesn't really work. It doesn't pulse the background because this is timeline 0 now, and now we change to timeline 1. So now we are officially in timeline 1, and this trigger is timeline 1. And now if I jump, boom, the background pulses to red because we are on channel number 1. I'm gonna get to the edit velocity in a bit. Let me just clarify like the channel stuff. So this is how it works. This line, the duration line, doesn't rotate. It's supposed to go like that, but I think this is something that Robtop hasn't done yet. Shouldn't be that big of an issue. You can just rotate the triggers like that just for convenience. You don't really have to, but it's just a recommendation of mine to know that this is on a different channel in here. Yeah, and I'm also gonna go into like the speed portals and how to make the sync not mess up and stuff like that. It's gonna get a lot more complicated, don't worry. If you're already getting far, that's pretty good. All right, so you can also see that there's this duration line in here, which if we copy and paste this and put it on timeline 0 again, you can see that this line goes like that. So this is how long the pulse is gonna be. You just take a look at the pulse like that, and then as the line approaches the end, this is where the pulsing ends. The background is back to blue. And the way you activate this is simply by going to the pause menu. I have it hidden right now. You go to the settings and then you activate duration lines. These two options I would recommend having on so you can see all these debug lines basically. So now we know how to set up triggers and stuff like that. And you can see that if you go up, the screen is gonna pulse to red. If you are like going up like that, it's basically the same thing. So let's just make it change to another channel. Let's say we want to change it to channel 2 now, and this is where it gets a little bit more complicated. So what you want to do is after we are in here, we want to change to normal again. So you want to copy and paste this and put it in here. However, you can see that things are kind of weird because remember, every single trigger that is on this timeline number 1, which is the channel, has to have the channel of 1. So this one, the new arrow trigger that you just placed, has to be on channel 1, and you want it to change to channel 2. So right now we are on channel 0, and now we are on channel 1, and now we pulse the background because this trigger is also on channel 1, and this one has to be on channel 1 because you are right now about to switch direction from channel 1 into channel number 2. And in here we are officially in channel number 2. Let's just copy and paste this, put it in here, change the channel to 2. And once you approach that, it should pulse the background to red. Nice. Okay, so again, if you want to go even wilder, copy, just make sure that the channel that's in here, it needs to be in here also, and then you can change it to the next one. I think this is very self-explanatory now. So now actually, let's just move on to the edit velocity for a bit, and then I'm probably going to talk about the speed portal. So you can see how there's like this bump in here, but we don't really want that. So what do we do about it? Let's just see. What you can do to change these like weird actings is use the edit velocity, and we want to override the velocity and keep it at 1. So we want it to be overwritten so that it's always 1, and now boom, you can see that it's super smooth, almost 90-degree angle in here, but it looks very, very good. A lot better than this like bouncing thingy. So you can play around with this to get different results depending on what you want. And this specifically, this edit velocity, actually I'm gonna try it out in the ship. This is mostly useful for the ship. Let me just show you real quick. Let's say we have a ship with a free fly mode like that, and now let's say I move it like this. You can see that how the ship is like going kind of weird. So you can edit the velocity, override it to 1, and now if I go like that, you can see that it's much smoother than, you know, just falling and going sideways. You can twist all of these things, play around with the values until you get like the right thing. I think yeah, something like this is perfect. It's like a bounce, and it doesn't, basically keeps you straight. So yeah, these values -1, -1 override velocity should be very good for the ship. So that's it with the ship thingy. Let me just go back to the channel system. And so what we want to do now is let's actually use the speed portals. I don't want to do channels anymore because I think it's very self-explanatory now. So let's say we want to go, let's say we want to go 3 times speed, and then we want to slow down, and then we want to go, I don't know, like say we want to bring you back to normal. So another thing is that if you play the line, if you play the music, you can see that it also goes up and also pulses the background, so you can actually test stuff like this. However, there is one tip that I want to tell you guys about this, and it's that let's say you're in a level and it's very big and you don't want to play it from 0 always. You just want this line to start at this trigger, for example. Start from here going up. So what you can do is select the trigger that you want the line to start with, click on edit group and playback. This is very, very useful, guys. Now if you play it, you can see that it starts exactly there. No matter where you are in the level, it always starts there. If you use the arrow trigger a lot, then you can basically just add like a move trigger, make sure it's on channel 1, playback. It doesn't really have to do anything, it's just a move trigger randomly. Okay, wait, I just realized you can't play back the timeline with a move trigger for some reason. I'm not quite sure if this is a bug or anything, but let's try it out. Yeah, the pulse, just use the pulse trigger, really default settings, just playback channel 1, and then it's gonna start from there. You can change it to here, and if you want it to start in here, basically channel 2, boom, nice. Okay, move trigger doesn't work, I don't really know why, but yeah. So let's get back to the speed changes. Let's say you want to have it with a music. Okay, now you want to go like we said, this and then that. You can see that if I play the music, you can see that the line doesn't change the speed, and this is because speed portals also have to be changed to channel 1, because by default everything is on channel 0. And now if I play it, you can see that it's going fast, slow, and then normal. That's very, very good. However, there is one more thing that you need to calculate for when it comes to speed portals, because the game doesn't really know how to specify when these speed portals are being used. So for example, you would have, for the first speed portal, you would want to give it the order of 1, and then the second speed portal, order of 2, third one, order of 3. Okay, so now let's move on to how you're gonna use start positions, because it is very important to know how to use the start positions, especially when you use the arrow trigger, because look at this, I have a very long gameplay in here. I made it so that it goes left, up, left, down, you know, it's very long. And the way I did this, just like I showed you at the beginning, this one changes to 2, so this one has to be on 2 and change to 3. This one is on 3, changes to 4. This one is on 4 and changes to 5. This speed change, what channel does this have? If you guys know, then you guys are big brain. This one has the channel of 2, because this one is the channel 2. So, start positions. If you wanna, for example, let's say, if you wanna start in here, and you place a start position in here, let's say I place a start position in here, you can see that it's absolutely messy, and the music sync doesn't work, the rotation doesn't work, and so on. So, the first thing that I wanna do is actually change the gameplay so that it fits. What I wanna do is go on to the options and make it rotate gameplay. By default, this is gonna have the gravity of if you start it right now, it's just gonna go like that, boom. So what you wanna do is we wanna rotate gravity and also flip gravity. So that's exactly what we want. Now it's going upwards with the gravity to the right. So now we want this to work, because as you guys can see, it doesn't, this is completely being ignored because it's on channel 3. And if you go onto the start position, you can click on edit object and you can see that there's a target channel, and this goes to specify on which channel you want this start position to be on which timeline basically. So what you want to do is check the last arrow trigger and go on here. So this one changes to channel 3, so we want to go in here, type 3, and boom. However, even if you start it now, you can see that it's still messed up. It does not recognize that this arrow trigger is on channel 3. I think this is an issue within the game that has to be reported to Robtop, because it's very broken. So the only way to test this, there's actually a very tricky, I wouldn't really call it tricky, but it's like a way around. So what you want to do is just move it a tiny bit like that. It really just depends on like which side you are gonna go next, and just decrease the channel by 1. So now you want to place the start position exactly at where the arrow trigger is, and now if you start it, you can see that it works perfectly. It does recognize that as a channel. And yeah, I think that is everything for the start positions. Let's say you want to playtest this level. Again, place a start position in here, move it a little bit like that, so you see like this line difference between these two, and then you put it in the corner right where this guy is, and then the channel should be 0 because this is where you are gonna go. And you don't really have to play around with any of these settings then, because then it automatically just does that, because it basically triggers this arrow trigger. And yeah, with that done, I think the start position is over. I think we have clarified exactly what it means. However, there's one more thing that I want to talk about, which is very, very important, and it's the music music sync and how it can be messed up. Let me just show you what that means. So by default, if we start this one, you're gonna see that it's the music line is gonna go straight and it's gonna rotate, and it's gonna start from exactly here in the center where the arrow trigger is. And what that means is that, let's say I have a music like that, and you can see how the beat changes exactly in here, and that happens if I don't jump here. However, if I jump, you can see that now the music, basically the line goes like that, and once you reach here, it doesn't go from here, it goes from here. So you are basically 2 blocks off with the music sync. And now listen to this, with the new beats basically started somewhere in here, and this is a very important thing that you gotta like work around. And there are a lot of things that you can do to prevent this from happening. For example, Robtop in his levels, he does something like this, where you have this block that you can't jump on, so you have to go through this one. And of course, yeah, jumping from here is impossible, but you guys get the idea. You can actually go to the level dash and check out all of this stuff for yourself. So for example, this arrow trigger, if you've watched my videos on the main channel, Excreator, you will know that Robtop uses these slopes so that you always hit the arrow trigger right where the arrow trigger is, because this is not touch triggered. So if you usually go here, it's 2 blocks off with the music sync, then you're gonna start from there. So Robtop pushes you downwards so that you hit it on the perfect spot. And we can see in here, he uses these blocks so that you have no choice but to just go here and up there. Every corner has a block, as you guys can see. And yeah, in here you have no choice, you are falling anyway, so the music sync is always going to be the same. And in here as well, you can see that every time he uses the arrow trigger, it always has a workaround to prevent this music offset to be terrible. And I think you guys get the idea. Basically just try your best to make the player hit the arrow trigger exactly where it is. And yeah, and if you think there is something that I didn't explain in this video, something about the arrow trigger, you can either tell me in the comment section, or you can join my Discord server, which has a category specifically for tutorials, and we can help you figure out how different triggers work. If you have like any questions, just join the Discord server and go to triggers in here and post your question, or you can go to auto build and get some help and stuff like that. Yeah, this server, I just opened it, it's new, and yeah, the link is going to be in the description. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. More tutorials are coming soon. Also make sure to play my last 3 levels that are very cool collab with amazing people that did a fantastic job, and it's for a secret project that is upcoming also. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope this was very helpful for you. Make sure to slap that like button, also subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.